What's up, everybody? So yesterday we got a podcast with Nikita and the team where they got to talk about 12.11 and some of the stuff that's coming in the future of Escape from Tarkov. And instead of doing a recap of that video, because I know other people will, and it was on Pestyly's channel, so who better to recap it than Pestily, that instead I would kind of give my thoughts on 12.11 and the state of Escape from Tarkov, because I think a lot of people, including myself, sometimes are maybe looking at the game through the wrong lens or getting a little caught up in some of the things Nikita says. But I stream Escape from Tarkov on Twitch. I'd love to have you stop by and say hey. All my links will be down below. And if you like this video, go ahead and drop it a like, comment your thoughts down below, and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Anyways, with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive right in. All right, so as always, as a preface to all this, I in no way think that I have the right to speak for the entire community. These are my thoughts. These are my opinions. This is kind of more of just like a talking head rant style video. And if you disagree or, just don't want to hear my opinion or don't care, that's totally fine. Click away. But these are just kind of my thoughts as somebody who's really immersed in this game and, streams it, does YouTube videos, and just my thoughts on, what's happening in the game right now and its future. I am not, a shill for BSG where I just think that no matter what they do, they're always in the right and they've never done anything wrong, even though some people think I am. And I'm not on the other side either where I'm ready to give up on this game and just be like, well, they're liars and scammers and we're just, it's never going to be what they say it's going to be. And I think that's really it, is I just represent somewhere in the middle where, the frustrations are a lot of times justified. But on the flip side, we just kind of have to let them make the game they want to make. So those are kind of the disclaimers. But like we said, they did the podcast yesterday and they talked a lot about 12.11, and we're not going to go into, all the, the exact things and all the nitty gritty details. But as a really quick overview, in 12.11, we're getting the factory expansion with the new boss. We're getting the first iteration of Scav Karma. We're getting the weapon malfunctions and kind of some additional testing around that. And we're kind of reworking some of the optics that are happening. The wipe is currently not planned. It's a kind of a confusing area because they were talked about in two separate, areas where they said that he wants 12.11 out. Nikita said he wants 12.11 out in early June, the first few weeks of June, that they're going to cut off, adding new features sometime in May. Then they start testing and hopefully early June. And then when asked about a wipe, he said it's not even on their radar, not in the coming weeks or months. So I think it's really safe to assume that unless 12.11 gets pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed for like an additional month or two, I think it's really safe to assume no wipe in 12.11. And a lot of people are up in arms about that. And I totally understand the frustration and the desire for a wipe. I love wipes. I love the early game. I love having something to do in Tarkov. But we have to remember why wipes happen. And they happen for testing purposes, not for boredom purposes. When mechanics come into the game that need to be tested and they need to see X, Y, or Z under the hood, what's going on, then they'll wipe the game. A lot of people come and they talk to me like they work at Battlestate Games saying that they wipe because the streamers are bored or they wipe because the community's bored, and that's just really not it. And I think a good perspective, we were talking about this on stream the other day, is as best as I can tell, we are still about 75 days away from this being the longest wipe. Like the longest wipe that's ever happened was at this point 75 days longer than where we are right now. But it doesn't feel like that, right? It feels like this wipe has lasted forever. It feels like we've got to be only like a week or two away from this being the longest wipe ever. And if you ask yourself why that is, I think we can convince ourselves that wiping with 12.11 probably isn't a good idea. The 12.9 wipe that came over Christmas had the Woods expansion, so a map expansion. It had the attachments rework, where they were going to do a big rework to the attachments and change the stats. And it had a bunch of new guns. We had the MCX, we had the Vector, and we had the Mark 18. And then, of course, some small things under the hood and a supplementary patch. Steam Audio came back and stuff like that. And people got bored with that really quickly. That stuff did not last. That's why it feels like this wipe has lasted really long, because everybody got through the quests and it was like, well, what's different? Woods isn't my favorite map, or I don't like the expansion, or I like the expansion, but I want to play other maps. I don't really like the new guns, or I kind of use them sometimes. And the attachments, nothing really changed because just like different metas formed in like 24 hours after the patch. Well, when you stack that up against what this wipe is, or what 12.11 is, map expansion, attachments rework with the optics, and new guns. We're getting the Scar L and the Scar H. The weapon malfunction thing will be really interesting. I'll give you that. And the Scav Karma thing is so separate from needing to wipe your PMC because it's Scav Karma. We can start from scratch here, this far into a wipe. So when you kind of line it up, there's nothing that would make another wipe last longer. We would get all excited for the wipe. A few weeks in, we'd be frustrated that some people already have Kappa and have endgame gear, like we are every wipe. And then the newness of the wipe would wear off and we would be super frustrated, exactly like we are now. So I totally understand the desire for a wipe and wanting that and wanting to play the game. A lot of us feel like that early wipe is like the game that game is supposed to be. But taking a break from the game is probably a better answer than spamming wipes in chats and trying to get the game to wipe when it doesn't need to wipe. Because then you can enjoy another game and have fun and play another game while this game is going through what it needs to go through, which is just iterations and patches and changes. So I think that's just a unique perspective on if we just wipe for the sake of wiping, it's sooner and sooner and sooner each time we'll get less satisfied with them because nothing changes. Now, that's kind of a perfect segue into just a broader state of the game where I really understand the frustrations. And I'm frustrated and sad. I'm sad that the two biggest features I was looking for in 12.11 got pushed back, which was the Unity 2019 upgrade and the inertia. At one point, both of those things were kind of supposed to come in 12.11, and now we know that they're both pushed a little bit. They might be in 12.11.x or 12.12. We don't know yet. And I think that's what the community is waiting for. I think that's what I'm waiting for. I don't want to speak for everybody, but changes that push the grander vision of this game that we have towards the vision that Nikita wants it to be, and changes that have lasting effects on the game. Inertia is going to change movement, or at least I would hope it would, a ton. And based on what Nikita has said, push people to a more tactical, slower play style instead of AD spamming corners. Unity 2019 is going to help with a lot of limitations they have around networking and audio stuff, which is going to help. We talk about this a lot on the podcast, that those are the big three. Those are the big three that without any guns, any new maps, the big three things that actually plague the game that really you have a hard time building on top of is the networking, the audio, and the movement. And 12.11 was originally supposed to, at least in some way, shape, or form, address all of those things with the Unity upgrade and inertia, and those things got pushed. Now, I know Nikita has talked a lot about wanting this avalanche effect, that if we can get some of these underlying systems done, then hopefully the content will be able to be pushed out much quickly, which means it's understandable that those underlying systems are hard to nail down, and that's why they can get pushed back. And I also don't claim to know how those systems can be designed better, and I don't think any of you do as well. Some of these things aren't just hire more people and throw more bodies at it. Sometimes less cooks in the kitchen and more just masterful people doing their job is helpful. So I think it's in a weird spot where a lot of the patches have felt pretty empty recently because it's the type of content that can get stale quickly with guns or expansions or, new armors or small things. And we're all kind of waiting for the next big push in the right direction. Whole new maps are always a big deal because then that's a lot of different type of gameplay you can get used to. And I think a lot of these things, like the more vision-based things, like inertia coming in, there's talks of VoIP, there's talks of, network updates, and a lot of these things that are really going to help tighten up the core mechanics of the game and then push the game more towards where it's supposed to be. And I think what's happened over the past few months is that I have just realized that I just need to kind of let go, and we just kind of let them do their thing. I was watching Clean the other day, and he said it best, where it's just like, I want BSG to make the game that they want to make. I want Battlestate Games to just make the game that they have the vision for, and that's it. And as much as, open discussion and dialogue and stuff like that is really good, and a lot of streamers like to talk about it, and people like to talk about it in YouTube comments and all over the place, at the end of the day, at least for me, I'm kind of just pulling back and just saying, all we can do is trust that they're working as hard as they can and wait for these things to come in. And it's always good to theory craft and talk about ideas. We do that on the podcast all the time, but we just, I'm reminded all the time that I'm not a video game designer. I don't know how these things function. I don't know how to do these things better. I don't know if it's because they're dragging their feet or if it's, external forces that push these things back. But all we can really do is wait. And a really important perspective to keep while we wait is that the game that we're playing now is so far away from the final version of the game, and that there are fundamental core mechanics of the game that aren't in it yet. And the reason why I bring that up is because a lot of times while we theory craft, especially when it's out of these frustrations, we say things like, well, why don't they fix the economy? Why don't they fix the servers? Why don't they just remove the flea market? Why don't they do this? This price is so crazy, this. And we just have to remember that we want this game to come out as soon as possible. And a lot of times what we indirectly do is we ask for more work, which would actually push the game farther back. We say, we'll fix the economy, and they might be thinking, well, this map and this physicalized vendor and this thing, and if we do open world or whatever, these are going to completely change the economy. So if we take hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of man hours balancing out the economy as it stands right now, then we're pushing back the work of finalizing those other things. And when those other things come into the game, it makes all of that work we just did completely irrelevant because the economy is completely changing again. So I'm not saying you need to like open world or this or that, but without being behind the curtain, without seeing every single thing that's going on, we really can't just kind of show up and say, why don't they fix this? Why don't they balance that? Because we may be indirectly asking for more work because a mechanic that's coming way, way later could address that, and then we can avoid the work having to be done around that. And that is a result of how they chose to give us this game. Instead of a vertical slice where they gave us one map with every mechanic in the entire game functioning properly, they gave us a few maps and it's rolling features. They keep adding features. They keep adding features. And I totally understand that that can feel unfair because we're like, well, how could we think outside of the perspective of what we have? And that's fair. That's justified. Just don't take that to the extreme and then pretend like we know how to fix the game, or pretend that Battlestate Games isn't doing the right thing because they're not fixing a thing that we want them to fix. They probably are doing it, just in a different way because they're creating something that's going to change that down the line. Nice Guy did an amazing video that talks about this subject, and I'll link that down below. But that's another perspective to keep while we wait. So there isn't like this some grand point to this video. I'm not pointing to any one specific in the community. These are just thoughts as somebody who has been really, really excited throughout this year and a little bit, frustrated and sad with some of the news that we got. Trying to empathize with Nikita, understanding that there are a lot of external forces and, COVID and all that, I'm sure put a huge damper on all the work that they were trying to do last year. And I also totally understand some of the frustrations about what's being said versus what we get delivered, or what's being said versus what we think is possible. And I can empathize with the fact that Nikita has said that he really struggles with not wanting to overpromise and underdeliver, but at the same time, he gets these questions over and over and over again. He wants to give us something, so I can identify with that and I can understand that. But then on the flip side, things like confusing thing happened, like where they talk about they want Lighthouse out this summer, but they're still gray boxing it, which as far as I can tell means they haven't even finalized the map yet. They're in where do we want this building? Do we want this building over here? And I don't see how we've been waiting for Streets for 4 years. We've been waiting on other maps for a while. I don't see how they can go from not even the map finalized yet all the way to shipping it to us in 2 months. Based on everything that I've seen and everything that's been pushed back over the last few years, I don't see how that's possible. So I get that that's a part of it as well, where they're trying their best to give dates that they think are right, but then things keep getting pushed back, and that's frustrating. Like I said, I'm not some BSG shill. I think they could do a lot around setting expectations better, but I understand that kind of plays into the frustration as well. But it really just all boils down to the fact that any frustration around the development of the game is probably justified, and I would bet Nikita would say that too. But what do we do with that? How do we move forward? Video games are about having fun. So either we need to just let go of thinking we know how to develop this game and just learn to have fun with the game that we have, which is what I'm trying to do, or we need to just take a break and play some other games. I've been playing a little bit of other games like, Apex or Warzone towards the end of the stream, and it's taught me two really big things. One, video games are just supposed to be fun, and when I play another game that I'm not so invested in, it's so easy to just sit there and enjoy it, and that's kind of reminded me to maybe pull some of that investment out in Tarkov and just play Tarkov for being a video game and just enjoy it. And the other thing is that, Tarkov isn't the only game with bugs. I played Warzone. I played Warzone probably 15 or 20 hours, and I haven't had a single hour of play where I haven't been plagued with bugs. And so moving forward, just with kind of that mentality of just either play another game or play this game for what it is right now and let them kind of do their thing. There's a lot of talk about stuff coming on, potentially this year. Maybe some of these underlying systems are actually going to happen. They were talking about Lighthouse, they're talking about Streets and splitting that up so we can get it. And all those things would be cool, and all those things would be really fun to get our hands on. But we just have to move forward with what we have. So like I said, there wasn't like some huge point to this video. 12.11 is got some cool stuff. To me, it seems like there's no reason to wipe, or else we'll just have the 12.9 wipe all over again. And hopefully this year, if they can get some of these bigger systems in place that actually create that avalanche effect, we can experience, some rapid development for the game. But what I'm trying to do is learn to enjoy what I have, try out some other games as well, and really just give them the freedom to just do whatever they want to do. Because even if we could prove that they're dragging their feet because of X, Y, or Z reason, there's nothing I can do about it. There's nothing we can do about it. We're not the ones designing the game. They are. And so my challenge is just try to the community and to myself is just to try to keep it in a positive light. If you have nothing positive to say about the game in somebody's stream, then, watch somebody stream a different game, play a different game. I'm definitely not saying that the Tarkov community is a negative community. There's always a vocal minority, and assuming that everybody exists the way they exist is dumb. But just what I'm saying is around our thoughts on the wipe, around our thoughts around the development of the game, and when we're in streams, or when we're in YouTube comments, or when we're playing the game, that's just the challenge, is to keep it in a positive way, to understand that the reason we're passionate about this game, the reason that we're toxic about this game, the reason that we play it so much is because we're excited for it, and we really love it. And this game for sure is something that I never thought I'd like. I do love, so that gives me all the more reason to say, well, that means you guys gave me something I didn't know I would like, and I love it. You guys just make whatever you want out of it, and I'll probably love it because you've taught me that already. So that's kind of just the rant about Tarkov, about where we are, about how to move forward. For me, how I'm thinking I need to move forward. And hopefully maybe you can identify with this a little bit. Maybe you don't care at all my opinion. That's totally understandable. I'm not changing anything. I'm going to have tons of, gun builds and guides and funny videos and highlights. And, the Tarkov content is still coming. Nothing's changing. But I realized that I need to kind of take my hands off the wheel and just pump the brakes and say, hey, let's just ride this out, have fun, and let the content come when it comes. And I figured I would share that with you guys, since I know that we talk about this stuff all the time on stream. So hopefully, this helped. Hopefully this gave you a little bit of perspective on the game, and you can kind of continue to just dive into Tarkov and have fun for what it is. Thank you so much, as always, for taking the time to check out this video. If you liked the video, think about dropping a like, commenting down below, or subscribing to the channel for more content like this. I stream Escape From Tarkov on Twitch. All my links will be down below. I'd love to have you stop by and say hey. And if you're looking for people to play Tarkov with, our Discord server is an awesome place to be. That link is down below as well. Go ahead and check that out. Thank you again for stopping by, and I will definitely see y'all on the next one.